With the announcement of SNK Heroines recently, I got the itch to go back and play another Heroines game I first started 2 years ago. Nitroplus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duel first released in arcades in Japan on April 30th of 2015. By spring of 2016, it was ported to the PS4 and PS3 in North America and PAL regions. This would be when I first played the game. A short while later, it was released worldwide via Steam on PC. Developed by Examu and published by Marvelous, this game offers the quintessential arcade experience. With beautiful 2D anime sprites and some gorgeous animation, this game sports 14 playable characters sourced from popular franchises. 12 of these characters are available from the get-go, and the other 2 are locked behind DLC! In addition to the 14 playable characters, there are 18 support characters. If you never played a fighter like this before, we will be talking a little bit later about what these support characters are actually good for. Those familiar with the franchises these characters are sourced from will definitely get a bit more of a thrill out of this game than those who aren't familiar, but even without the knowledge, you can jump into this game and just have a good time. I, of course, got into this game because our main Senran Kagura girl Homura actually makes an appearance on the roster and... Wait, hold up. 31 frames? You only give my girl 31 frames in the intro? You gave Saber 36 and she doesn't even have to share a shot! And Homura is one of the locked characters! Come on guys, I bought the sweet edition of this game that actually came with this rad t-shirt, and you have my character locked? Mind you, the Homura DLC was free within a certain time window after the game's release. But I didn't actually find this out until doing this review, and that time window of course has expired. She now costs $5.99 Canadian. It is what it is, folks. The story is about what you would expect from a crossover fighter like this. Generally, these all follow the same tropes. The threads of space and time are unwoven and being crossed against each other, causing all these characters from different dimensions to end up in the same world at the same time. The cause of this is a malevolent evil who of course takes the form of a super powerful lolly. There is a little more nuance to the source of this girl's power, but it's not particularly important or worth getting into for the purpose of review. With very few exceptions, the story is not what we play fighters for, especially not arcade fighters like this. We play for the combat. So, how is it? Well, the combat too is a lot of what you would expect. This is a good thing and a bad thing. Good because it's a solid combat system, and bad because it lends to this game's inability to stand out in a crowd of other anime-themed fighters. Although it's definitely best experienced with a fight stick, the controller support is excellent, and all buttons can be remapped at a moment's notice. Just don't try to compromise like I did and play like this. You have dedicated buttons for light, medium, and heavy attacks, and how the attacks perform is dependent on the direction you're holding. The game supports movement with both the D-pad and the analog stick. While I usually swear by the D-pad in 2D games like this, I find the PlayStation controller's D-pad is not the best for performing moves that require a quarter circle rotation. So I found myself mostly using the analog stick for this game. With the analog stick, the game feels faster, more fluid, and more responsive to me. Double tap left or right to run, up to jump. You can bring 2 support characters into battle with you. Like other games, support characters can be summoned into a stage to deal a single attack and then not used again until their cooldown has ended. Each support character is mapped to their own button. By default, this is L1 and L2. You also have your blast indicated by this icon here. So long as it's lit up, you can use it. This can only be used once per round. Using the blast in close proximity to your opponent will blast them away and grant you buffs that include temporary health regeneration. This gauge down here charges up by taking and dealing damage. Different moves will use a different amount of bars, and of course your biggest move is tied to using all 3. With the right button combinations, you also have grab attacks and character-specific specials. The controls are universal from character to character, so you won't need to learn new button combinations for each one. But each character plays quite different from the rest, so learning how to best utilize their abilities is the real challenge. There is actually quite a lot of subtle tricks you can take advantage of that play into the meta of the game, and if you want a deeper look at it than what I've provided here, I left a link to an Evernote page in the description that gets into the real nitty-gritty of it. This link will remain here until the page no longer exists. In addition to the story mode, each character has their own aftermath story to play through, which works the same as the main campaign. The game also has a score attack mode, which enters you into the online leaderboards. There's local versus mode, and of course online ranked and non-ranked matches. Given the game is 2 years old on console, there's not much left going on online. I wasn't able to find a ranked match at all, and the only unranked I could find seemed to be a private match, so I can't fully speak on what the netcode is like in 2018. I've looked for other people's opinions and found a mix of critics saying it's great and players saying it's trash. If you have much experience playing this game online, sound off in the comments on how you felt it was, because right now I have no way of knowing. I'll pin the first comment I see on this, and that comment can be used for discussion on the matter. The music is mostly good and high energy, but makes odd and frequent use of some poor MIDI guitars, and the sound design is serviceable, but nothing great. The game is only voiced in Japanese, which I'm not opposed to, but if you're looking for English, look elsewhere. Little bits of charm seep into this game all over the place, from the fantastic animations and facial expressions, to Sonico using cats as her battle weapons, to the win-lose announcements using a major or minor note interval depending on how you done. There isn't too much more that I could explain in terms of the mechanics for this game, but I do want to touch just a little bit on the Pve Difficulty Scaling. The story mode is only 8 matches and will take about 30 minutes to complete on a standard difficulty, providing you can beat the final boss. The characters are all well enough balanced to fight against each other in PvP, but on PvE, this is an arcade port and the arcade difficulty definitely shows. At times it can feel like you weren't even meant to beat it on standard difficulty. It can be done, of course, but winning almost requires you to resort to cheap tactics, like Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat 9 all over again. The difficulty follows a steady curve until match 8, when it jumps from 7 out of 10 all the way up to 69 out of 10 all at once. This really would be fine if it felt like you and your opponent were both playing with the same set of rules, but it really doesn't. Some attacks, such as the Vortex, are unavoidable instant kills if she's standing next to you when she uses it. You can't block it or roll away. The only way to escape is to run, but you can only run if it starts off far enough away from you. When this attack happens, you can expect you'll receive 9k damage in an 85 hit combo, and the game over screen will be showing itself shortly after. Thank God for infinite credits. For better or worse, depending on your perspective, this is 100% an arcade experience. But even in arcades, personally, I hate this practice. If I was dumping quarters into this game, I would have given up much sooner and never come back. I personally feel that on a fundamental level, this is just a bad practice. And it's an annoying one to keep running into in otherwise solid fighters that have been ported from the arcade. Thankfully, being a home console port, this does have difficulty selections and other features to change how matches go, so maybe it's not worth all this complaining. Standard difficulty is rough at the end, but if I swallow my pride, stop being a bitch, and just drop the difficulty like I should, it all plays pretty excellently. When you do beat the battle, you get a single unique art still for the character you played as, and a little bow to wrap up the lackluster story. Credits roll, then you get a post-credit sequence hinting that the evil will live on despite all that you've done. One other thing that annoyed me throughout, and this is more of a fault of the PS4 than of the game itself, is that the game has many scenes blocked from recording, meaning these warnings are frequent and distracting. These scenes aren't exactly anything special either. I see no reason for the restriction, but it is the developer's right to do this at the end of the day, and something I'll just have to suffer with. Overall, I do really enjoy Nitroplus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duel, despite its inability to stand out in a crowd, and despite the practices it kept from its arcade counterpart. It's a great 2D anime fighter with solid battle mechanics, and I'd have no problem recommending it, but wouldn't readily recommend it over any other games cut from the same cloth. If you like this genre of fighting game, you'll like this one, but don't go in expecting anything special beyond the recognizable characters. For the most part, critics and players all seem to agree. How often do you see parity between two aggregates? It's kind of crazy, really. But That's all I have to say on Nitroplus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duel. If you guys liked this video or found it useful at all, you know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, share if you can. Links to socials are in the description, and as always, thanks for watching.